So I've already made my opinions on ghosts perfectly known. Go ahead and see the other video on it. And part of that is because I used to give ghost story tours in the city of Denver. I used to get on a bus with people and we drive to different haunted locations, and I would tell them the history of those locations. And there is one ghost story that I remember very well. The other ones got a little bit foggy because I haven't told them for several years, but this one story I remember really well because a lot of it is just historical fact and it's crazy. The other parts of it are kind of embellished, but let me tell you the story. You'll know what I'm talking about. So back in the 1860s in Denver, Colorado, that was a time when the town was growing and booming and building a lot of things, and people were going up into the mountains to look for gold and other resources, right? And there was this one path that people would go up on into the mountains, and they kept finding dead bodies littered along the path. And while it wasn't uncommon for people to die on the frontier, right, these bodies all had their chests carved open and the hearts taken out. People had no idea who was doing it for a while. Was it bandits? Was it Native Americans? Was it ghosts? Who knows? But then eventually one person escapes an attack and runs back to town and goes, I know who's been doing it. I know who's been leaving all these bodies with the chest cut open. It's the Espinoza brothers. The Espinoza brothers are doing it. Sure enough, there were two brothers whose first name I forget, but their last names are Espinoza, and they had been living in the territory around the time of the Spanish-American War, and their entire family got wiped out during the war. They kind of retreated back up into the mountains and found a way to live up there by themselves for a while. And then allegedly, one night, a vision of the Virgin Mary came down to them, and she said, bring me the hearts of 100 gringos, and I will let your family's souls into heaven. Who knows if Mary actually knew the word gringos, but that's just how the legend goes. And so people are terrified. There are these two murderers, and they had racked up a body count. It was like dozens of people. And so the governor at the time, a man named John Evans, said, you know what? I'm going to make sure that the people of Colorado are safe. I'm going to go ahead and stop these brothers. And so he goes out and he hires the best bounty hunter at the time, a man by the name of Tom Tobin. So John Evans hires Tom Tobin. He's like, go kill those Espinoza brothers. I'll pay whatever you want. Just make sure that my people are safe. And it takes him a while, right? But Tom Tobin, true to his reputation, goes up into the mountains, manages to track the brothers down, shoots them from long distance, shoots them dead, kills them. But this is back in the days before, cell phones and social medias or even cameras for that matter, at least personal ones. And so he couldn't just snap a picture of the bodies or anything like that. He was up in the mountains, right? He couldn't just take two full-grown men and put them on the back of his horse and drag them all the way back to civilization. That'd be dangerous for him and his horse. So in order to prove that he had killed these two brothers, Tom Tobin took a saw and cut off both of the Espinoza brothers' heads. He took the heads and he took them to the nearest town where he found a doctor. And he convinced the doctor to put the heads in jars filled with a formaldehyde-like substance so that they wouldn't decay. And so Tobin takes these two jars and heads back to Governor John Evans, and he puts them on the desk and says, job's done. Governor John Evans was so proud of this, right? He was so proud of the fact that he was the one to stop this crime wave and to stop all of these people from getting murdered. He was the politician who went out and got the bounty hunter. He wanted the credit for it. And so he kept the heads. And allegedly, whenever he wanted to intimidate his political opponents, he would pull the two heads out and place them on his desk so that they would be looking at whoever was sitting across from them. So imagine you're going in for budget negotiations and you just got two heads like... staring at you. Incidentally, John Evans, the governor at the time, was originally famous for founding a number of different hospitals and is actually famous for helping develop most modern-day gynecological equipment. So yeah, next time you ladies go for a checkup, just remember, this next part of the story is where a lot of the embellishments might have happened, right? I can't quite find as much historical proof for this part of it. But allegedly, right, John Evans eventually leaves office, and he leaves a lot of his personal affects behind in a storage closet, including these two heads, right? And this is back in the day before cataloging, where historians tried to keep every little piece of everything that every government official touches preserved for future generations. So all of John Evans' stuff just kind of gets pushed into a back room. And it stays there for a while until a historian who allegedly was named Will Ferrell, not the Step Brothers guy, but apparently his name was Will Ferrell, was going through all of the old belongings, and he found these two jars and heads. And so he brings the jars to a city council meeting and goes, what am I supposed to do with these? And the city council goes, I don't know, put them in the tunnels underneath the Capitol building someplace dark so that we never see them again. And allegedly that's the last place where the heads went, because there are a system of tunnels underneath the state capitol building and the judicial building and all those really important government buildings for fire safety reasons. You know, if your building's on fire, you can go underground and go to a different building. They've been blocked off for decades at this point because they came up with better fire safety methods. But those tunnels do still exist. And so allegedly, several years ago, Will Ferrell carried two severed heads down underneath the state capitol building and hid them forever. Sounds like the setup to a joke, but it's actually the end of a story. Again, just going back to previous statements. What's the worst case scenario if you believe in ghosts but they don't exist? I'm a little bit nervous about going underneath the Denver State Capitol building, and maybe I won't go sneaking around in tunnels just in case there are severed heads down there. What happens if the heads do exist, but you don't believe in them, huh? Then you might get the ghost of gynecologists past coming to haunt you. That's what'll happen.